watching Cape Media News. I'm Gabrielle Rawson. I'm here today with Barnstable High School teacher Krissie Williams, who was recently honored for promoting diversity in the classroom through a curriculum she developed called the African American Experience. She's also the founder and president of the Barnstable Ally Group, which is dedicated to amplifying the voices of communities of color in Barnstable. Krissie, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for joining us. We brought you on the show today to talk about your recent honor and curriculum. But first, how long have you been teaching, and tell us, how did this come about for you?
Okay. Overall, I've been teaching, I would say, maybe 20 years, a little over 20 years. This curriculum, this class came about because Barnstable High School actually had a Black History class quite a few years ago. Probably, I would say maybe mid to late 1990s and to the early 2000s or whatever. And then it was canceled. And then a few years later, we decided to reconstruct it and make it a cultural perspectives class where we also talked about the histories of Native Americans, Hispanics, and women's history. And then it was canceled because of low numbers. So there's just really been a need to have a Black history course at the high school. If you look nationally, a lot of districts and states actually have Black history as a requirement for graduation, or some sort of diversity course that students have to take in order to graduate. So we were a little behind the ball, to be very honest. But now the class has just really grown. I think especially with the Black Lives Matter movement, and students in classes just really wanting to see a reflection of themselves in, the textbooks and readings and stories. And so we've been trying for a few years to get it, back up and running. And finally last year, thank goodness, it got approved. And so we've been, starting over this year with it. So it's been great.
Wonderful. I read that you spent a whole summer developing this curriculum.
Yes.
Talk to me about that process and about what specific topics you cover in this curriculum.
Well, I have the way I learned Black history was I educated myself, and I also took a graduate class on it. And so I kind of had that a little bit as a blueprint. Also, one thing that my curriculum coordinator and I did was that we searched for different curriculums around the country to see exactly what their, African American history classes or Black history classes, what was important, what was the content, what themes. And so those also helped to shape what it was that we decided would go into the curriculum. So that was really the first step. And then after that, you're constantly just kind of going through and line by line and seeing, what's important, what's not important, how much time do we have. We were under the gun with COVID. We started 10 days later this school year than normal. So we lost some time there. And then also we wanted to talk about what skills we felt were important that students know when they, when they leave Barnstable High School. And one of the things that I wanted to do was, I thought it was very important that we expose them to Black literature. So while we're also, whatever topic I'm on, we're also usually reading a book in conjunction with that time period.
Why is it so important to highlight the African American experience in school and in the community?
Well, Cape Cod is very diverse, a lot more diverse than people, think it is. And also, it's important because, studies have shown that when students are exposed to a curriculum or content that is about their experience, they feel validated. And if you look at the way I was taught history in high school, or perhaps you also, it was kind of like we had a textbook, and let's say it was about, I don't know, the Civil War, and the main facts were there, and then off to the side, there'd be like some sort of little graphic, and there'd be like one short paragraph about an African American or a woman who contributed, to whatever that particular topic was. That's just not enough. I don't think people realize how much African Americans have contributed to the American experience. It's Black History Month. An African American, a lot of people don't know, invented the modern day traffic light. An African American invented the potato chip. How can we not have a sandwich with potato chips? And that was just out of a fluke. He was upset because he made a meal. He was a chef, and the customer sent the meal back and said the potato chips were too thick. So he got mad and he started cutting them thinner, and voila, we have the potato chip. So many, small nuanced stories that people just don't understand. And I just love to see the kids really, they really get into it, especially the book we just read, the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. They could identify with those feelings, and you see their self-confidence start to grow. And you also see the white students in the class. They're very interested because it's a story unlike that they've heard before.
African American history is American history.
Exactly.
We just haven't been exposed to it. So I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show today, talking about this curriculum, and keep up the great work.
Thank you very much for having me.